Economies around the world have been changing decade to decade. It is hard to predict where a country will reach in the span of 10 years. But if the ball is in your court, and you play it right, well, then the game will be yours. Similarly, at this point of time, India really has a great opportunity. And no doubt, if they play it right, they could really achieve great things till the year 2030. Now the question here is, could India be the economic miracle of this decade? Well, let's find out. If you look back, India has really evolved over the years. From the year 1991, India started to open up its economy to the rest of the world. Specific changes included reducing import tariffs, deregulating markets, and reducing taxes. This led to an increase in foreign investment and high economic growth in the 90s and the 2000s. From 1992 to 2005, foreign investment increased 317%. This was a major boost for India's growing middle class. In a similar time frame, the government also started huge subsidies for rural India. This resulted in creating a huge consumer sector both in the urban and the rural areas. The higher FDI and consumer sector growth reflected in the country's GDP. From 2003 to 2007, India consistently grew 7 to 8% per year. The overall GDP grew from $266 billion in 1991 to $2.8 trillion in 2019. One major reason behind this economic growth is sudden boom in their service sector. The services sector is not only the dominant sector in India's GDP, but has also attracted significant foreign investment, while accounting for more than half of country's GDP. Unlike most of countries, where the trend of economic transition is usually from agriculture to industry, and then to the services. In India, the shift is more direct toward services rather than the industrial sector. The competitive advantage formed by the knowledge-based services makes the country a unique emerging market in the world and attracts many investments in the country. With the growing tech and IT industry, the services sector in India still has lots of potential to unlock a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity in the future. But even with this growth of the service industry, India is still struggling to generate good-paying jobs in the country. Now, one of the biggest sectors besides the services which can offer a plenty of good-paying jobs is the manufacturing sector. Growth in manufacturing is crucial for the country's economic development. To capitalize on the demographic dividend, India must create nearly 1 million jobs per month over the next decade. Manufacturing has the potential to provide large-scale employment to the young Indian population, and thereby enable a significant section of the population to move out of poverty. With $2.7 trillion of GDP in 2020, India is the world's sixth largest economy. Yet manufacturing accounts for only 16% of the country's GDP, compared with the services sector's 54%. Also, India represents only 3% of the world's manufacturing output. You see, the country has several strengths that could help it become a successful manufacturer. Like a large pool of engineers, a young workforce, wages that are half that of China's, and significant domestic consumption of manufactured goods. These factors become especially important as China, the world's preeminent manufacturing destination, faces peak labor shortages and exponential wage growth. India is currently focusing on more high-end manufacturing, like electronic components, smartphone manufacturing, and other related products. Till now they have had some success attracting some major companies under their PLI scheme. According to the Indian Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, these companies will be producing smartphones and other electronic components worth more than $143 billion over the next 5 years. Also, around 60% of the locally produced products will be exported. Some estimates suggest that these companies could generate more than 200,000 direct employment opportunities in the next 5 years, and as many as 600,000 indirect employment opportunities. Yet for now, most of the manufacturing is still based on assembly lines, and not the sophisticated manufacturing like chipset, memory, and other components. Still, the country is optimistic about creating complete supply chain for the electronic manufacturing. Recently, some news reports have come up, which say the Indian government is in talks with Taiwan for semiconductor manufacturing in India. As you know, Taiwan is one of the biggest manufacturers of semiconductor, and it could drastically change India's electronic manufacturing capabilities. Now, in order to boost India's overall manufacturing, it needs to improve its productivity by investing more in automation, skilled workforce, and improving the supply chains by boosting infrastructure. But here India lags behind international standards. Still, they have been focusing on some areas such as infrastructure and logistics. According to the government, the construction of national highways had touched a record high of 37 kilometers per day in the year 2020 to 21. Now, in terms of the power sector, India is the world's third largest producer, yet also the third largest consumer of electricity. Even though they have surplus power generation capacity, they lack adequate transmission and distribution infrastructure. Also, India's electricity sector is dominated by fossil fuels, in particular coal, which during the 2018-19 fiscal year produced about 3/4 of the country's electricity. This makes India one of the biggest polluters in the world. Yet the government is optimistic to produce clean energy and reduce the country's dependency on coal power plants. It is expected that non-fossil fuels generation contribution is likely to be around 44.7% of the total gross electricity generation by the year 2030. Now the question here is, will India achieve growth without harming the environment? Well, we have to wait and watch. Another phenomenon that really helped was the banking revolution in India. The government started a program to open bank accounts for people, especially in rural parts of the country. You see, in developed countries such as the US, having a bank account is a common thing. But in India, particularly in rural India, it is not. Bank penetration in the country's population is not great. But the government started a campaign, and the results of this are pretty good. As of January 2021, a total of 41.7 crore accounts have been opened under this scheme, out of which almost 36 crore accounts are operative. This made transactions really easy for the government, as well as the people, especially the migrants. Also, combining the digital revolution with banking by the Unified Payments Interface was pretty great. This interface works by instantly transferring funds between two bank accounts on a mobile platform with no paperwork. By doing this, India has leapfrogged the whole generation of credit card bureaucracy, and has already moved to a more modern system of paperless transactions. With the exponential growth of UPI, India became the world's largest real-time payment market with 25.5 billion annual transactions in 2020, leaving behind China and the United States. During the 37 months of operation starting from 2016, the UPI payment system helped transact a total of $240 billion, which is a pretty big amount considering India's current economic status. This program was so successful that in December 2019, Google suggested the US Federal Reserve Board to build FedNow, a real-time payment system for the United States, taking the UPI model into account. So, to sum it all up, we can say the ball is in India's court. But they will only win the game if they could get over the challenges and play it right. The country has a huge opportunity to grow upon their demographic dividend, like China did in the past. Now, what is your perspective about India? Will they really win over this decade? Well, tell us in the comments below. And if you really like this piece of content, then please share it with the world. We would also love to hear from you, what kind of videos you want us to create in the future. Thank you.